It started with crayons. Just crayons and a kid's honest little heart. My niece, Ava, 6 years old and wild about drawing, had been sitting at our kitchen table one quiet Sunday afternoon with a rainbow of Crayolas fanned out in front of her like a deck of cards. Lily, my wife, was in the living room, talking too loud on speakerphone with one of her friends, probably Megan or Rachel, folks I never really got along with. I was halfway through an oil change in the driveway, hands covered in grime, when Ava came out and tugged on my jeans with that little proud grin kids get when they think they've made something you'll want to hang on the fridge. "Uncle," she said. I drew Aunt Lily's family. I wiped my hands on an old rag and leaned down to take a look. The paper was still warm from her fingers. Scribbles in bright colors, sun in the corner, a green triangle tree, a crooked blue house with yellow windows. 3 stick figures stood front and center, Lily in the middle, holding hands with a man labeled Uncle Matt on one side and Ava on the other. That was it. 3 of them. No dog. No cat. No me. At first, I thought maybe she'd just run out of space. The paper was small, after all. But the more I looked at it, the more it felt deliberate. Lily's hair was drawn with care, brown scribbles that matched her real curls. Ava had her favorite purple dress on, the one she wore every Sunday to church. And Uncle Matt had brown spiky hair and a blue shirt. Blue, just like the one I saw in Matt's social media photo last week when Lily told me she was working late. But what really hit me in the gut wasn't just that I wasn't there, it was how complete the drawing looked without me. I stared at that picture for a long while. Longer than I probably should have. The kind of long where the world around you blurs and quiets. I could still hear Lily in the living room, her voice bouncing off the hardwood floors, laughing in that high-pitched, airy way that used to make my stomach flutter back when we were new and happy. Back when I believed her. I didn't say anything to Ava. I patted her on the head, told her it was real good, then went back to the garage and just stood there staring at the open hood of the truck. But I wasn't thinking about the engine. I was thinking about the last 6 months. The sudden absences. The shift in her eyes. The way she started pausing before she said, "I love you." The pause that always lasted just one beat too long. I'd spent my life in the military before all this. Army. Did 3 tours before I came home, met Lily, and tried to build something normal. I've seen men lie. I've seen fear. And I've seen people try to fake their way through a moment. I was trained to read silence better than words. So when that picture showed up, I didn't see a kid's mistake. I saw a message. One Ava didn't even know she was sending. When Lily came home that night, the sun had already dropped behind the pines. I was sitting at the kitchen table with the drawing laid out in front of me, next to a half-drunk cup of black coffee. She came in humming some tune, probably from the radio. Tossed her keys in the bowl like always, kicked her heels off at the door. She saw me sitting there, but didn't stop humming until she walked into the kitchen. "What's this?" she asked, grabbing a glass from the cupboard. I didn't answer. Just slid the drawing toward her. She looked down at it, and I watched the moment her face shifted. She smiled too fast. One of those smiles that doesn't touch the eyes. Then she laughed. A short, breathy thing. "Ava's so silly," she said, waving her hand. "She's always mixing people up." But her voice trembled. Just a little. A note so faint you'd miss it if you didn't know how to hear it. But I did. I heard it like a siren in the stillness. She poured her water, tried to keep walking, but I kept looking at her. That's when I saw it, the pause. She didn't ask me if I liked the drawing. She didn't ask why I looked upset. She didn't ask anything at all. Because she knew. And I knew she knew. I didn't blow up. I didn't raise my voice or throw the glass. I've never been that kind of man. Anger like that's loud and useless. Real clarity is quiet. It creeps up your spine like cold rain and settles in your gut like a weight you suddenly know how to carry. I didn't need her confession. Didn't need proof. I had enough to see what mattered. You don't get erased from a child's drawing by accident. You get erased because someone made it normal for you not to be there. So I sat there in that kitchen, in the house we built, across from a woman who didn't see me anymore. And I said nothing. Because sometimes, silence isn't empty. It's a loaded weapon. And in that moment, I decided I wasn't going to fire it. Not yet. I was just going to walk away, real slow, while she kept digging her own grave, one lie, one laugh, one missing drawing at a time. I went to the home office, turned on the old desk lamp, and opened my laptop. No drama. No shaking hands. Just a quiet click of keys while I logged into every shared financial account we had, checking, savings, the investment portfolio we barely used. We had a joint money market account, too, just a safety net we called it, But it had more than she remembered. I moved everything out. Every cent didn't empty anything. I just rerouted. Built a trust in my name only, one she couldn't touch. Ironclad. She probably didn't remember the password to half those accounts. I only remembered because I'm the one who set them up. She liked the idea of being in charge of the money. I let her believe she was. From there, I pulled out the old file box we kept in the hallway closet, the one with our paperwork, warranties, birth certificates, all the boring stuff most couples forget about after the honeymoon phase wears off. In the middle, tucked between mortgage papers and a refinance folder we never used, was the prenup. She made me sign it when we were just getting started. Back then, she worked in corporate PR, and I was driving forklifts and finishing up my bachelor's on the GI Bill. She made more money, had a nicer car. Her apartment had one of those industrial sinks that felt like it belonged in a magazine. She came from folks who wore real leather and had silver that needed polishing. I came from diesel and hand-me-downs. So, when her lawyer handed me the prenup, she called it a formality. I signed it with the same pen I'd used to fill out job applications. Funny thing is, life changed. Fast. I got my degree, climbed the ranks in logistics, and started my own small outfit by the time I hit 38. We'd done all right. Her career stalled a bit. Mine didn't. Suddenly, that prenup wasn't protecting her anymore. It was protecting me. I read every line of that document again, slowly, like it was gospel. I made notes, circled items, took pictures on my phone and emailed them to a folder only I could access. Then I called my lawyer. Name's Jordan. Ex-Marine turned family law specialist. We met years ago through a veterans networking thing, and while we weren't close, I knew he played clean, and he played smart. I left a voicemail. Need to talk. Situation changed at home. Call me tomorrow. That was it. After I hung up, I stood in the hallway for a long time. Just breathing. Just listening. The house was quiet. Too quiet. You ever notice how silence in a house that used to be loud can feel like it's pressing on your skin? I packed one bag. Not a suitcase. A canvas duffel I'd kept from my old barracks days. Threw in 2 pairs of jeans for shirts, underwear, socks, a flannel jacket, and my shaving kit. I didn't bother with anything sentimental. I figured if something mattered enough, I'd remember to come back for it later. I left my wedding ring on the nightstand. In the kitchen, I sat down at the table and pulled a notepad from the drawer. I wrote 6 words. I know. My attorney will reach out. No signature. No anger. No goodbye. I folded it and left it on the counter where she usually put the grocery list. I figured she'd see it when she came downstairs the next morning to make her green smoothie or whatever new health kick she was on that week. She had a blender that sounded like it was preparing for liftoff every morning at 6:15. I hated that thing. I grabbed my bag, my keys, and walked out. Didn't slam the door. Didn't look back. The air was cool that night. Damp. There was fog creeping along the edges of the street. I remember that, because I stood at the edge of the driveway for a second, staring out into the quiet before climbing into my truck. I sat there with the engine off, watching the porch light flicker a little. That bulb needed changing. I always meant to do it. Then I turned the key. I didn't have a plan yet. I didn't know where I'd sleep. Motel maybe. Or drive until the sun came up. What I did know was that I wouldn't be there when she came down the stairs. Wouldn't be sitting across the kitchen table asking who Matt was or why I was erased from a crayon drawing. I wasn't going to let her see me unravel. No, I was going to vanish, not into some dramatic void, not into some soap opera ending, but the kind of disappearance that leaves a hole in someone's routine. The kind they don't feel right away. But later, when the silence stretches too long, that's when it hits. I didn't slam the door on my way out. I just closed it behind me like a man who had already left years ago. Like a man who never needed the last word. Just the final move. I didn't disappear. I just stopped showing up in the places she expected me to be. There's a difference between vanishing and being deliberately unseen. I didn't change my name, didn't burn my phone, didn't hightail it to some distant border town like a fugitive in a thriller. I stayed right where I was needed, just beyond her reach, just out of her narrative. While she kept spinning her life like I was out of sight and out of mind, I was paying close attention. Truth is, I knew Lily better than she knew herself. And I knew Matt by proxy, through business meet and greets, Christmas parties, and one awful weekend barbecue where he overcooked steaks and tried too hard to seem like one of the guys. He had that polished corporate look, gelled hair, perfect teeth, a handshake like a damp fish. Always on his phone, always name-dropping like he thought it bought him credibility. But I knew a hustler when I saw one. See, people like Matt don't think anyone's watching until someone's already got the drop on them. I didn't go around smearing them on the internet or screaming at the sky about what they'd done. That kind of revenge is loud and clumsy. No, what I did was quieter, cleaner, like a man fishing with wire instead of dynamite. I started small. I went through every calendar invite Lily had sent me over the past year. Dinner cancellations, rescheduled meetings. I cross-checked those with bank statements, gas receipts, and digital parking pass timestamps from the app she forgot was linked to our shared email. Matt's name started to show up in small, forgettable ways: lunches, networking events, out-of-office replies that didn't quite match the time zone she claimed to be in. I took screenshots. Every piece went into a folder on an encrypted drive, password protected, labeled with something boring: Taxes 2019. No one would open it unless they had a death wish for boredom. Then I pulled old photos, party shots from Lily's social accounts. One in particular stood out: Matt in the background, his hand on the small of her back, not just casually but like it belonged there. You could almost miss it if you weren't looking. But I was. I was trained to find the 1 inch that didn't fit in the frame. I found 2 expense reports, corporate dinners billed to Matt's consulting firm. Both had my name signed digitally under the guest approval field. She'd used my name, my record, my clearance. That's when I stopped feeling betrayed and started feeling something else. Angled. See, betrayal's personal. But misuse of identity? That's professional. That's war. So I picked my target carefully. Not a friend. Not a stranger. A man named Kellerman. Matt's business associate. Kind of a silent partner in a venture they'd tried to keep quiet. Kellerman wasn't squeaky clean, but he was cautious. The kind of man who played things by the book when the money got serious. I printed one photo. Sent it in a plain envelope. No return address. Then, a week later, another envelope with expense reports, blacked out except for the lines that mattered. The third envelope? Calendar data. Overlaps in travel. One receipt from a hotel Lily told me she hated. She lied. She'd been there twice. No notes. No threats. Just breadcrumbs. Kellerman got the message. I don't know exactly what happened after that. Just that Matt pulled out of 2 projects within a month, and one of their clients quietly backed out of a 6-figure contract. I wasn't interested in torching their house. I just wanted to mess with the wiring until the lights went out on their own. All the while, I stayed low. Moved into a modest rental on the edge of town. Quiet street, corner unit, no neighbors above me. The kind of place where the sound of wind through trees drowns out whatever noise you don't want to hear. I bought a used couch, cooked my own meals, drank coffee out of an old steel mug from my deployment days. But I didn't isolate. I redirected. I started volunteering at a legal clinic that worked with veterans. No paycheck, just purpose. Guys coming in with busted-up claims, housing issues, old benefits that had been buried in red tape. They didn't care about my past. They cared if I could help them keep their lights on. I did. Some days I stayed late just to scrub the front windows or organize files. The silence in that building felt different, earned. Not heavy. Not like the one I left behind. Lily never contacted me directly. Not then, anyway. I figured she was too busy trying to stabilize whatever personal illusion she'd built around Matt. And Matt? Well, he didn't know where I'd gone. But I imagine he felt me anyway. That's the thing about quiet warfare. It's not about visibility. It's about pressure. The kind that comes from inside the walls. The kind you can't trace until something starts cracking. I wasn't trying to make a headline out of their failure. I didn't want the satisfaction of watching them explode on the evening news. That kind of victory is fleeting. What I wanted, what I needed, was for them to wonder which step caused the floor to collapse. And the less they heard from me, the more damage I did. No footprints. No fire. Just a man, somewhere in the fog, pulling strings they didn't know they left hanging. That's how you win a war without drawing your weapon. I didn't expect purpose to find me in a folding chair beside a vending machine with humming lights and busted buttons. But that's where it started. The legal clinic was modest, old government building repurposed to serve those who'd served. The coffee was bitter, the chairs were plastic, and the waiting room was always too warm. But people kept showing up. Men and women. Some younger than me, others twice my age. You could see the miles on them, scars on their knuckles, stooped shoulders, eyes that had seen too much and been paid too little. My job wasn't glamorous. I wasn't a lawyer, just a man who knew how to organize files, write clean summaries, and sit with people who needed someone to listen. That last part mattered most. Some folks hadn't had a real conversation in years. They'd been processed, ignored, or passed between departments like bad checks. I started noticing patterns. One guy came in Marine Corps, early 50s. Said he'd been part of a fundraising campaign years back. Some charity used his story to drum up donations after he was wounded overseas. Only problem? He never gave them permission. Didn't even know his photo was out there until his neighbor showed him a flyer in the mail. Another vet, Army Reserve, got a letter saying he owed back taxes on a grant he never applied for. Turned out his service record was attached to a nonprofit's application for government aid. Same nonprofit that had hosted a banquet he wasn't invited to and presented an award he never received. Different faces, same hustle. Real people, real damage. That's when the dots started connecting. Lily and Matt weren't outliers. They were cogs in a machine, one that fed off people like me, like these men and women who walked into our clinic carrying plastic folders filled with broken promises, fake foundations, misused funds, doctored photos with flags in the background and generic captions like "Support our heroes." I got angry. Not the shouting kind of angry. Not the throw a chair through the window kind either. It was colder than that. The kind of angry that creeps into your bones and settles down like it's going to stay a while. The kind that doesn't fade with time, it sharpens. So I got organized. It started with a clipboard. I began logging every story that had even a whiff of fraud. Collected names, dates, organizations, and patterns. Cross-checked grant awards with IRS filings. Dug into the background of every veteran-led nonprofit that popped up after an election cycle or natural disaster. Most were legit. Some weren't. A few were rotten to the core. I brought the notes to a few folks I trusted, other vets at the clinic, some former auditors, a retired JAG who still came in once a month to volunteer. We formed a group. Called it Clearwatch. Sounded simple, but that was the point. We weren't trying to make noise. We were trying to shine a light. Our mission was plain: track, audit, and expose anyone exploiting military stories, records, or names for personal gain. No politics. No grandstanding. Just facts. If someone forged a DD 214 to apply for benefits they didn't earn, we flagged it. If a group used photos of real soldiers without consent, we documented it. If a corporation tried to brand itself as veteran-friendly but failed to hire a single vet, we made sure people knew. We didn't have a big office. Just laptops, spreadsheets, and grit. But word got out. We built quiet momentum. A blog post here. An anonymous tip line there. I taught myself how to file FOIA requests. Started calling around to state attorney offices. Every now and then, someone would listen. The thing is, we weren't out to take down every small-time hustler selling boot camp memorabilia out of their garage. We were looking for the big fish, the well-dressed executives who sat on panels about patriotism while cashing checks made off dead men's names. Within 6 months, we'd uncovered 7 different organizations with irregularities in their filings. One of them had received a federal grant using testimonials from veterans who didn't exist. I remember reading the names aloud at a meeting. Half of them were men I knew personally. One was dead, killed in a Humvee rollover in Mosul. They'd used his name, photo, and a quote he never said. That night, I went home and didn't speak for hours. Just sat at the kitchen table with my fist clenched, staring at nothing. That was when I understood the weight of what we were doing. This wasn't just fraud. It was theft of memory. By the time a Senate subcommittee sent us a request for an internal summary of our findings, we'd become more than a volunteer task force. We were a movement. Quiet, but solid. Grounded in truth. We weren't just tracking numbers. We were defending legacies. The committee didn't come with cameras. Just a request for data, contacts, and dates. We gave them what we had. Not because we were trying to make headlines, but because we couldn't stand the idea of one more family opening their mailbox to find a stranger holding their son's face with the words "Help our heroes" in bold red font. Clearwatch grew. More volunteers. Some pro bono lawyers. A few researchers who used to work for federal watchdog groups. We stayed low, kept working. No social media accounts. No branded t-shirts. Just boots on the ground, digital or otherwise. And through it all, I kept showing up at the clinic, filing papers, brewing bad coffee, listening to stories. That's how you build resistance. Not with flags or slogans, but with the kind of truth know like an outrun. It had been quiet for a long time. Months, actually. Long enough for the fire to cool and turn to ash. Long enough that I didn't think much about Lily during the day. She became like a closed door I didn't open anymore. There were days when her name didn't even cross my mind until I caught a smell that reminded me of the lotion she used to keep on the nightstand, or I passed someone at the grocery store wearing a coat like hers. But mostly, she was gone, packed away in a part of my mind I didn't visit. Then one night, while I was finishing a bowl of chili and listening to an old Willie Nelson record, my phone lit up on the counter. Lily. The name glowed like a memory I didn't ask for. I let it ring once. Twice. I almost let it go to voicemail. But something in me, maybe curiosity, maybe instinct, made me pick up. Hello, I said, my voice flat, steady. There was a pause. Then her voice came through, low and brittle, like it was being dragged across gravel. Matt's gone, she said. Just 2 words. But it landed like a hammer to the ribs. What do you mean gone? I asked, even though I already knew. I didn't ask if he was dead. I didn't care that much. I asked because I wanted to hear her try and explain what gone meant in her world now. She hesitated. I could hear her breathing shaky, unsteady. Then she said, he took off. His business partner cut him out. He drained our accounts and left the country. I have nothing. The silence that followed was thick. I let it sit there for a while. I stirred my chili with the back of the spoon, not because I was going to keep eating it, but because I didn't want to give her anything, not even my stillness. I need your help, she said finally. There it was. The real reason she called. I don't have the money for a lawyer, she went on. In my name, it's getting dragged through everything he left behind. He used me. I didn't know. You knew, I interrupted. Her breath hitched, but she didn't argue. I didn't know the full extent, she tried. I didn't know how far it went. I didn't say anything. I thought you might still care enough to help. Not for me. For my family. My reputation. They're saying I signed off on things I didn't understand. I didn't think it would go this far. There it was again. I didn't think. No, Lily, you didn't. The part of me that had loved her was long gone. But the part that understood how systems worked, the part that had studied this exact pattern of people pretending they were victims of their own choices, was wide awake. You want legal help? I said finally. Yes, she whispered. And I need someone to help clear my name. I'm not asking for anything else. Please. I let out a breath and stood up, walking to the window. The night was cold, dark blue, and quiet. The kind of night where you can see your reflection in the glass and feel like you're looking at someone else. I'll help, I said. She gasped, maybe out of relief, maybe disbelief. But there's one condition, I continued. You go on record. What? Publicly. On camera. You sit down and you tell the truth. Everything. No hedging. No vague answers. No playing the poor manipulated woman card. You tell the story straight. From the beginning. Who did what? Where the money went. How my name got on those forms. All of it. There was a long silence. You want me to confess? She said quietly. I want you to own it, I replied. Not for me. Not even for yourself. For the people you helped hurt. For every name Matt used like a coupon code. You want me to help? That's the price. I could get arrested, she said. I didn't respond. She exhaled, shaky again. I could hear her pacing, the soft slap of her bare feet on tile, like she was trying to walk away from the idea while still tethered to it. I'll lose everything, she added, like she hadn't already. You already did, I said. Another silence. This one heavier. I don't know if I have the strength, she whispered, like she was talking to herself now. I watched my reflection in the window. The man looking back at me wasn't angry, wasn't gloating, just tired, steady, like a dam that had held back more than its share. If you don't have the strength, I said, then don't ask for mine. That landed. I waited. Finally, after almost a full minute of dead air, she said, okay. Not loud, not defiant, just real, small, like someone saying yes to a storm they couldn't outrun. I'll do it, she added. I'll go on record. I didn't tell her thank you. I didn't say she was doing the right thing. She wasn't doing it for morality. She was doing it because there was nowhere else to run. Then I'll set it up, I told her. You'll hear from someone in a few days. All right, she said. And thank you. I hung up without answering. Then I turned off the lights, washed out my bowl, and stood in the dark kitchen with the hum of the refrigerator in my ear. She thought the collapse came when Matt left. But I knew better. The collapse started the day she erased me from her life. All I did was give her the silence to feel it fully. It aired on a Thursday evening. Local station. Channel 12. One of those community news programs that aired between the weather and the high school football schedule. The kind with a single camera, a desk too big for the room, and a reporter trying to sound more important than the furniture allowed. That was the plan. No spotlight. No headlines. Just truth. Quiet. Raw. Local truth. Her interview had been pre-recorded. They teased it earlier that week with a still image of her sitting in a gray chair, hands clenched tight in her lap. Former nonprofit executive breaks silence. The banner read, "No names. No sensationalism. Just enough to make folks curious." I didn't tell anyone I was watching. I sat alone, lights off, just the blue glow of the TV painting the living room. I'd made a cup of coffee beforehand, thinking I'd need something to do with my hands. Didn't touch it once. When the segment started, I leaned forward without meaning to. The shot opened on Lily. She looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically, but something in her posture. Like the years had caught up all at once, and she hadn't figured out how to carry them yet. Her hair was pulled back, simple. No makeup beyond what the studio probably required. She wore a muted navy blouse. Nothing loud, nothing polished. The reporter, a young woman named Adrian, asked the first question gently. "Why now?" Lily looked at the floor for a moment before answering. "Because there's no one left to lie to," she said. No tremble, no hesitation, just that. She went on to describe how it started, how she and Matt saw an opportunity after one of the fundraising dinners they attended on behalf of a veteran relief fund. How the money came easy once they realized most people never checked the paperwork as long as the pictures looked good and the slogans were patriotic enough. She talked about how they used old service records, names of real soldiers, some who had passed, others who didn't even know they'd been featured on impact pages and annual reports. She said Matt was the architect, but she helped build the house. She admitted to signing grant applications using my name, said it gave the paperwork credibility. Decorated combat veteran with direct outreach experience. She typed once, copying from an old award letter of mine she found in a box in the closet. "No one checks a soldier's story," she said. "They just assume it's real." Adrian asked if she ever thought about the harm it caused. Lily didn't answer right away. She swallowed hard, eyes still locked on her hands. "I think about it now," she said. "I think about the families we took from, the stories we turned into sales pitches." She didn't try to blame Matt, didn't paint herself as manipulated, said they both knew what they were doing. Said greed wasn't the word, it was vanity. The desire to be seen as successful, powerful, compassionate, all at once. "I don't expect forgiveness," she said, voice low. "I just don't want to die with this still hidden." Then came the question I'd been waiting for. "Did you regret using your husband's name?" Another pause. "I stopped thinking of him as my husband a long time before I used his name," she said. "That was my first betrayal. The rest just followed." There were no tears on camera, not during the taping. But when the segment ended, they aired a short clip from after the interview, off the cuff, behind the scenes. The camera was still rolling while the crew packed up. Lily sat alone, thinking she wasn't being watched. That's when it hit her. She bowed her head. Not dramatic, not staged, just folded in on herself, shoulders shaking. A sound escaped her, thin, like someone trying to breathe through water. And for the first time in years, I believed her tears. Not because she was sorry, but because there was nothing left to protect. She wasn't crying for me, or for Matt, or for the donors she'd misled. She was crying because she finally saw the thing she'd built. And it wasn't a legacy, it was a ruin. I watched the whole thing without moving. When it ended, the station cut to a commercial for roofing insulation. I sat still for a long moment, then reached for the remote, clicked the TV off, and sat in the dark with the echo of her voice still hanging in the room. I didn't save the video, didn't record it, didn't go online to see the public's reaction or check if anyone shared it. Once was enough. I didn't need to watch it again, because that was never the point. I hadn't asked her to confess so I could get closure. I'd already found that the day I walked out of our house with a single bag and a quiet promise to myself. I asked her to confess because truth needs witnesses. I bore witness. That was all. And after that, I never looked back. I live up in the hills now, western North Carolina, just past where the cell signal fades and the road starts to crack. Got a little cabin tucked into the pines. Not much, but it holds together. Tin roof, wood stove, creaky porch. It sits on a patch of land where deer still wander through at dawn and the fog rolls in like a blanket every morning. It's quiet here. Real quiet. The kind of quiet where you can hear the wind moving through trees and the ticks of your own thoughts settling into place. It forces you to listen to yourself. At first, that's uncomfortable. But after a while, it's like learning a new language, one you forgot you ever knew. I build a life here out of smaller things. Routine, mostly. I wake up before the sun, put on coffee, chop some wood if the day calls for it. I read more than I used to. Books on history, carpentry, sometimes old war memoirs if I'm feeling stubborn. I take care of the place. Clean gutters, clear trails. The kind of work you feel in your back, not your head. It's not all solitude, though. Once or twice a week, I drive into town. There's a VFW post that runs a program for teens, mostly kids of veterans, a few foster youth, some just drifting between homes or hope. I volunteer as a mentor. Nothing fancy, just someone to show up and be there. Most of the boys don't say much at first. They come in with hard eyes and crossed arms. Some are angry. Some are tired in that old man way you don't expect from 15-year-olds. Others are just lost, like dogs that ran too far and forgot the way back. I don't preach to them. I just work beside them. We build benches, repair fences, clean up parks. We talk while we work, or not at all. Silence doesn't bother me, and I think they sense that. There's one kid in particular, Theo. 14. Scrawny. Jumpy like a rabbit in the brush. But sharp. Always watching, always thinking. Doesn't say much in groups. But when it's just the two of us painting old picnic tables or stacking sandbags for a trail wall, he opens up in little pieces. Just enough to let you know he's still in there, beneath the armor. His father was in the army. Deployed 3 times before coming back stateside and falling apart. Theo doesn't talk about the bad parts much. Just says his old man used to be bigger. I know what he means. Last week, after one of our morning trail days, I found Theo sitting on the back step of the community center with a sketch pad in his lap. He was hunched over, tongue sticking out the side of his mouth in concentration, drawing with a pack of crayons from the supply closet. When I sat down next to him, he flipped the page shut fast, like it was a secret. "You drawing comics again?" I asked. He shrugged. "Not really." I nodded and didn't press. We sat there for a while. The sun was warming the gravel. The smell of pine sap hung in the air like honey. After a few minutes, he handed me the drawing. "Here," he mumbled. "You can keep it if you want." I opened it. It was a sketch of a building, rough lines, uneven windows, a crooked American flag on a pole. Written across the roof in wobbly blue letters, "Free showers for soldiers." Inside the building were stick figures, some with canes, one in a wheelchair. Smiling. "Happy. You make this?" I asked. He nodded without looking at me. "You come up with this on your own?" He shrugged. I thought maybe one day we could build something like that. I didn't say anything for a long moment. I just looked at the picture. Something about it hit me harder than I expected. Maybe it was the crayon color. Maybe it was the way he'd drawn the flag leaning just a little, like it was tired but still standing. Or maybe it was the memory it stirred, of another crayon drawing I saw long ago, one that took everything from me. Funny how crayons can do that. Some drawings break you. Others rebuild you. I folded the picture neatly, slid it into my journal, the leather one I write in when the nights get too quiet and the past starts to pace. That little drawing sits there now, between pages of grief and purpose, like a bridge between two lives. Up here in the hills, I don't look back much. Not because I've forgotten, but because I've already taken from those memories what I needed. Pain can teach, but it can't lead. Not forever. I built something different now. Slower, smaller, more honest. Sometimes I think about how far I've come. From the man sitting across the kitchen table holding a child's drawing of absence, to the man sitting on a backstep holding a child's drawing of hope. That's the journey no one talks about. Not the war, not the loss, but the part after. The part where you choose to stay soft in a world that tried to harden you. That's the life I'm living now. Not perfect, not loud, but honest, and quiet, and mine. We launched RU12 last month. No confetti. No big press release. Just a borrowed space in the basement of a decommissioned post office, some second-hand office furniture, and a handful of people who knew what it felt like to be used, overlooked, or forgotten. The kind of folks who didn't come to be seen, they came to work. The name? RU12. It stands for Ruiz and the 12 others. Veterans whose names were forged, borrowed, or outright stolen for grant applications, hero campaigns, and donor newsletters they never approved. Some are still alive. Some aren't. All deserved better. Ruiz was a buddy of mine from downrange. Big guy. Quiet, but with a smile like he knew something the rest of us didn't. He didn't make it home. but his name did, stamped onto a half-dozen fake campaigns we uncovered during our Clearwatch work. It was used to sell inspiration, raise money, and validate programs that didn't exist, all without his family knowing. So when we had to pick a name for the foundation, I didn't hesitate. I just wrote it on the whiteboard. Are you 12? Are you one too? Veterans know the answer before the question finishes. We're not a brand. We don't do black tie galas or slick marketing videos with orchestral music swelling under flag-waving montages. We don't want pity. We want justice. Not the courtroom kind, though sometimes that happens too, but the kind that looks like a roof over someone's head or a forged signature getting burned in front of a state board. What we do is simple. Not easy, but simple. We build, one structure at a time. Transitional housing for veterans in crisis, starting with small units on donated land. A local church gave us our first acre. A lumber mill cut us a deal. Volunteers showed up before the sun did, coffee in one hand, hammer in the other. We provide legal defense. Not high-dollar suits with flashy arguments, just clean paperwork, timely filings, and advocates who know how to talk to judges without sounding like they're performing. Veterans come to us with stories no one believed. Now they have a place where they don't have to shout. We protect whistleblowers. The real kind. The ones who get threatened or fired for calling out fraud inside these nonprofits that slap American flags on every email while cashing in behind closed doors. We help them stay anonymous when needed. Help them stay visible when that matters more. We don't chase donors. We don't sell narratives. We tell the truth and trust that's enough. Sometimes it isn't. That's fine. We're not in this to impress. We're in it to last. Matt? He vanished. No one's seen him in over a year. Rumor is he emptied 3 business accounts and hopped a plane before any subpoenas reached his mailbox. Might be in Belize. Might be in some apartment living under a different name. Doesn't matter. He's not my concern anymore. Lily? She's still around, last I heard. Teaches business ethics part-time at a community college. The irony's so thick it makes your teeth ache. Her name pops up occasionally in articles or town meetings when people talk about oversight or transparency. She's become a case study in what happens when ambition outruns conscience. They're not villains in some movie. They're just people who made choices. Choices that burned bridges and carved shadows. Me? I didn't win. Not in the way people think of winning. I didn't get revenge in a flash of fireworks or public takedowns. There was no grand moment where I stood over them and declared victory. But I'm still here. I outlasted them. Outlived their version of the story. Walked out of the mess they made, clean, not untouched, but uncorrupted. That's what matters to me now. That I didn't have to become what they were to undo what they did. I built something instead. A foundation. A mission. A place where a name means something again. When I look around now, at the cinder block walls going up on a new shelter site, or at a vet smiling for the first time in a month because someone finally took his case seriously, I don't feel angry. I don't feel hollow. I feel right. That's the kind of revenge they never expect. The kind that plants itself in the soil and grows without them. That becomes something useful. Something lasting. A legacy, not just for me, but for the people they tried to erase. Somewhere in my desk drawer, I've still got Theo's crayon drawing. The one that says free showers for soldiers. We laminated it and hung a copy in the first unit we built. Some folks chuckled at it. Some got quiet. But all of them understood. You don't build legacy with noise. You build it with brick. And time. And the silence of a man who doesn't need to prove anything anymore. Share your thoughts in the comments. What's more satisfying? Revenge or rebuilding in silence? If you like the story, subscribe to the channel and give us a like.